If a man shall see the black dog for the first time, it will be a time of joy. If a man shall see the black dog a second time, it will be a time of sorrow. And if a man shall see the black dog for a third time, he will die. Now, many people have told about seeing the black dog for the first time. And some people have talked and spoke about seeing the black dog a second time. But no one has ever told about seeing the black dog for a third time, because they did not live to tell about it. Now, the way that you would recognize this particular black dog is that he is a dog of the spaniel variety. That's like the dogs that have those long, wavy ears and the sad eyes and kind of water in their eyes. And they have been described, his blackness is that, God bless you, of an old black hat that you would take outdoors and leave it in the rain for a good many days. The other way that you can tell this black dog is that you will see him bark. But you will hear no sound. And he doesn't leave any footprints in the sands of the summer or the snows of the winter. Now, the most famous story of the black dog was published in the Connecticut Quarterly in the year 1898. And it was an article that was written by a man called Mr. H.M.C. Pynchon. He was a geologist and he lived in New York, but he would travel several times a year to West Peak. A geologist is a person who studies rocks and their formations. And so he would come to West Peak. And he was also a climber. He liked to climb the ledges in the rocks. So this particular day, as published in 1898, Mr. Pynchon said how he had traveled to West Peak. It was September, and it was a nice sunny day, but there was a nip of cold in the air. And as his wagon went around the dirt road, he happened to look at these rocks, and he thought, got to go and look at them closer. So he stopped the wagon, he went over, and as he started to look at the marble and the grain, all of a sudden he felt like someone was with him. And he looked around, and that's when he saw the black dog. He could feel him right at his feet. He looked down, and there was the black dog. His tail was wagging, and Mr. Pynchon petted the dog. And then he got back into the wagon to continue his trip. And as the wagon moved ahead, that black dog stayed behind and followed Mr. Pynchon all the way up the dirt road. That's the way it was in those days. The dirt road went right up over into Southington. And so that black dog stayed with him. When he went for lunch in the pub in Southington, the black dog was with him, and Mr. Pynchon was so happy to have a companion for the day. Yeah. If a man shall see the black dog for the first time, it will be a time of joy. And Mr. Pynchon was elated to have that black dog for company. When it looked like the sun was starting to set, Mr. Pynchon got back in the wagon and headed for home. And of course, you know, the black dog followed him. And just as Mr. Pynchon came back down around that corner and looked at all those rocks, he said, I must look at them one more time. He got out of the wagon. He went over, he could feel the dog right there at his heels. They walked over, and as he's looking, all of a sudden he felt a coldness in the air. And he could feel like he was alone. And he looked down for the black dog. And the black dog was gone. It was as though he just vanished. Mr. Pynchon whistled. But the dog was nowhere to be seen. There was a little patch of woods, so Mr. Pynchon went over and he started to go into the woods, but it was so pitch black. And he just backed away, got into the wagon and left. A few years later, there was another article about the black dog that was published, again, in the Connecticut Quarterly. And this one also was written by Mr. Pynchon. And in the article, he states how he had come to West Peak, and with another friend who was also a geologist, and how they were sitting in the hotel in Southington. They were talking. It was the night before they were going to climb, and they were sitting before the fire. And you know how it is when you're talking with a friend. But each one was telling them different experiences and adventures they had had on different climbs that they had made without each other. And as they were talking, Mr. Pynchon's friend told how he had seen the black dog twice. And Mr. Pynchon, he looked at his friend and he said, "You have seen the black dog twice, and you are still going to climb again?" Pshaw, that's just nonsense. I don't believe in superstitions. And so it was that the next morning they began their climb. Now, it was a February morning, and there was a glaze of ice over the rocks. And as I told you, they were careful climbers. They were avid climbers, and so they, started their ascent. And as they were climbing, everything was going fine. In fact, they were almost to the very top. And both of them happened to look up at the same time. And when they looked up, there, jutting between the rocks, was the black dog. Mr. Pynchon's friend looked at him. Mr. Pynchon looked at his friend, and then quickly they looked away, and they continued their climb. But do you know, it was right after that Mr. Pynchon's friend slipped on the ice, and he dropped and plunged all the way down to his death. If a man shall see the black dog for a third time, he will die. And it was the third time that Mr. Pynchon's friend had seen the black dog. If a man shall see the black dog a second time, it will be a time of sorrow. And it was a sad day for Mr. Pynchon. He had just seen the black dog for a second time, and his friend had died, so indeed he was very sad. Mr. Pynchon never did write another article about the black dog. However, many, many years later, there was another article in the Connecticut Quarterly about Mr. Pynchon. It seemed like he, a geologist from New York, was climbing the rocks at West Peak when he slipped and fell to his death. Now, I don't know, and you don't know, and nobody will ever know if Mr. Pynchon did see the black dog for the third time. But I can tell you this, that even to this very day, whenever somebody falls to their death from West Peak, there is always someone who will say, "I wonder, I'll bet you saw the black dog for the third